So, I was curious to Mary Beth, to go back to you'd mentioned, the time with the hospice providers. Yeah, could you any thoughts on, how can caregivers perhaps better navigate the healthcare system for their loved one? Because you have obviously seen it from both sides, or see it from both sides, as a nurse, a hospice nurse, as well as someone that has had a loved one in hospice and a loved one with Alzheimer's dementia. Any advice or ways for caregivers to better navigate the healthcare system?
Well, my mom, I kept her going to the doctor as long as I could get her in the car. And then I had to do a transportation service, which was very costly. So at that point, I got hospice involved because you get their doctor and you also get a social worker and a chaplain and your nurse and your bath person. So the social worker is a key person because they know all the community resources that are available. Have you tried this? Have you gone here? Do you know about this? And if she didn't know, she would ask around. So I know that social workers are a huge asset, but and volunteers. They have volunteers now. That's a Medicare requirement. They have to have 5% of their hours be volunteer hours. Volunteers can call 911, but they can't do anything. They don't do anything hands-on. So that was nice. I mean, as long as my mom was more alert and I felt like, gosh, I'm abandoning her, leaving her in her room. She's got the TV on, the door's open. She sees people come and go. But still, I felt guilty that I got to go to my desk. I got to do some work. It was nice to have a volunteer come in. I did reach out on Facebook to the community page or whatever, and there's people out there in the community that will come but I was very leery to take somebody that's unvetted coming into my home. I tried an agency and they sent out a sitter. And literally, that's all she did. She did no interaction. She couldn't do nothing hands-on. And it was costing me, $21, $22 an hour for what? And so I canceled that. I'm blessed that I have an adult child living here. If it weren't for her and my husband, my mother she would be in the nursing home. And if she were in the nursing home, she would have been long gone. And the reason I say that is, of course, I've been in the nursing homes. They're understaffed and they don't have time to do those extra things that keep our loved one going. Like I get my mom up. She's total care. But between my daughter and I, we can hook her under her arms, stand her up. She can bear some weight, get her on the potty, and then we try to walk her around the kitchen island and get her back to her chair. The social worker I wasn't too thrilled with because she said in their meeting what they do to talk about the patient and say are they still recertifiable. She goes, she still gets her up, and the nurse had to educate the social worker. She does that because the more mobile her mom is, the easier it is to care for her. When she becomes bedbound, it's going to be a lot harder. So my experience with having caregivers, I haven't had a lot of luck, honestly. I do get out of the house because I have a husband and adult daughter here. And so I can run and do my Walmart and Sam's, and that is my break. That's my break, is doing my errands. So, my mom's like a toddler, only worse. You speak to a toddler and they kind of get it and you're teaching them. And the next time around, they hopefully remembered a little bit of what you taught them and you build on that. And that's how they grow up. Well, with dementia, it's completely the opposite. And you think you can make a schedule or teach them to do something that makes caregiving for them easier, and they don't get it. And it's not going to be the same. So, she's got word salad now. She cannot make any needs known. So I almost always go by facial expression, like you would a baby, an infant that can't express themselves. I'm looking for her anxiety in her face, or fear. Sometimes she's got a look of fear and nobody's doing anything to her. I have no idea. But again, that's hallucinating. And I don't know. She'll fight with the TV, argue with the TV. And to me, hey, she's having a conversation with somebody because she'll always win. So that's fine. But I've never,
Yeah.
thank God, had to medicate her. We did give her medications at night to stop the wandering and get her to sleep enough so that I could sleep. I mean, I had a baby monitor in there and all that stuff, but
Hmm.
it's still kind of hard to sleep.
Yeah.
And they always ask how many hours a night is she sleeping or how many hours in a 24-hour period. And I know what they're looking for. They're looking for measurable decline. I get it. She's declining very, very slowly because I'm doing the maximum to keep it from happening. It's a losing battle, I know. But we discovered that after a while, she didn't need those medications at night, and we cut the trazodone in half, and she still had a good night's sleep without being over medicated. Because, if you've ever taken a Valium or an Ativan yourself, if you wake up in the morning, you might be a little woozy,
Hmm.
get a little hangover there. So the last thing you want to do is put psychotropic meds on this person, on this brain that's not functioning right anymore. I don't know. I just feel like I'm compounding her problems. So I back away on the medication. And this is what they do in the nursing home. I forgot what the terminology is, but if they have patients on all these psychotropics, they back them off on the medication and see what the effect is. Are the symptoms still controlled? Great. Let's back off a little bit more. Are the symptoms still controlled? Oh, wait, symptoms are starting to happen. Go back to that other dose. And we know that that's the smallest amount they need for it to be effective. There's a term
Hmm.
for all that. I'm sorry, I don't know what it is.
Yeah.
So,
Gradual dose reduction. Yeah.
I practice that at home. I got her where she's happy. She's not sedated. She sleeps well at night, and I might even be backing off on it some more and see how that goes.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, you make really good points, Mary Beth, about engaging, healthcare professionals. One of the things that geriatricians in particular, many, utilize this notion of slow and low, so slow, not going to the most well-known therapeutic dose immediately, and as opposed to, titrating up,
Mhm.
and being able to give the individual a bit more of a runway than perhaps someone that doesn't have some of the cognitive impairment that someone may be experiencing. Jason, I wanted to go to you next and ask, I know you mentioned that you served as a long distance caregiver. Uh, you know, did you find were you from that distance able to, or were you interacting with the healthcare system and healthcare professionals from that distance? And what was that experience like? How would you, what lessons might you share from that?
Yeah, so during that experience, I really did not have a lot of interaction with the doctors. My mom was mostly managing that. She was his caretaker for
Hmm.
95% of the disease. However, currently, I am the caretaker for my aunt locally, and I'm the only family member in the area, and I've just kind of folded myself into this process. It's very early on in the disease, and the thing that's been most difficult for me is just how disconnected the entire network of doctors that she uses is. So, for example, her neuropsychiatric person is in one network, her psychiatrist is in another kind of group of doctors, her primary care is in another group. So, I kind of have to be this person that's kind of figuring out, like, okay, how do all these things fit together? How can I get the primary care to tell the psychiatrist what medication she's on so I'm not the person that has to kind of manage all that? So whether it's like being able to figure out if the portals can be connected to share data, things like that. But right now I'm still kind of on this in this place where I'm struggling, and I'm kind of looking for some support, kind of like some of the people that Mary Beth mentioned, maybe a geriatrician or a social, what's it called? Not social services. You know what I'm
Social worker.
social worker,
Oh,
exactly.
okay, gotcha.
Yeah. That could potentially help with that. So I'm still navigating that landscape right now. And for me, like a lot of calls just to the Alzheimer's Association and some other folks have been really helpful in just kind of determining like who I can reach out to and who can help with this. That's kind of where I am right now. There's a lot
Mhm.
of anxiety surrounding it. I really liked what Kathy and Ajit said about meds and all that kind of stuff. So I'm really pulling those tools out of the toolkit as I navigate this whole landscape, which has not been easy.
Yeah. I know we're at the top of the hour, but I wanted to, before transitioning to the final question of our panel, I wanted to give an opportunity for just one more or another poll question. So we've talked about resources throughout this last part of our conversation, and so really wanted to hear from the audience today. Who has been your most trusted source of support when managing these behaviors? We've heard some folks mention the Alzheimer's Association, their healthcare provider, other avenues. Be curious to hear your feedback, because for us, it's also helpful to know how to reach caregivers with resources. And for many people, that may be our website, it may be today's webinar, but it may be a lot of other different avenues. So if you could take an opportunity to answer this polling question, we would appreciate it. Um, Nicole, I was going to go to you one more time as folks fill out the poll there, and just ask when it comes to navigating Caregiver Action .org. Certainly, there's a lot of resources on there, and we've been putting some in the chat there. Anything come to mind when you see these sources of information that you would want to make sure to highlight for caregivers when thinking about where to look for resources?
Yeah, I think definitely, again, utilizing your peer networks. We really, here at Caregiver Action Network, have been talking a lot about peer networks. We learn so much from people who have a lived experience that we can connect with, that we can relate to. Even if it's just, one little piece of the story, we can say, oh yeah, um, you know, uh, I'm having an issue with this and I feel trusted asking you about this. What did you do? I see so much of that happening in the chat too, and it's really lovely to see. I think it can be really hard for caregivers to, especially for newer caregivers, to know exactly what they're looking for. Um,
Mhm.
so I think, leaving no stone unturned, not being afraid to reach out for support, for information, um, anywhere that you can find it. We always talk about also, being discerning and being able to sift through, all of the bits and pieces that are out there. The internet
Mhm.
is wonderful, but it can take a lot of sifting. So
Yeah.
you definitely want to be mindful of that. But, for us here at CAN, we have some really amazing resources on our website that I
Yeah.
think, and we'll talk a little bit about them in just a,
Mhm.
a moment, but we have, kind of what I like to think of as a primer for navigating some of these symptoms, you know, kind of becoming familiar with what they are, what they look like, and how they may be different from, how they may present associated with something else. Um, I think also we now have a new tool that we'll talk about that's kind of like a course that really digs in deep to these
Mhm.
symptoms as well. So the
Yeah,
information is
perfect.
out there.
Yeah, great. Thank you so much, Nicole. Dakota, you want to give a quick overview of our polling question number three?
Sure. So we actually had what seems like a much bigger spread in this one. We're seeing around 12% of people saying that their go-to trusted source for managing these behaviors is a healthcare provider. Around 19% saying another caregiver or peer. Around 26% saying a support group, which is great to see. Educational tools coming in around 19%. And with 24% of people saying, I haven't found consistent or helpful support. And I hope that we'll be able to change that for you.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting to see, and it's we're gonna do a final question with our panel here, and then we're gonna actually give you an overview or highlight some of the resources on caregiveraction.org that may be helpful to you folks. But I wanted to come back to as you guys know, we had a chance to converse before today's summit, and one of the things that came up in our conversation was that culture matters, meaning that what you are accustomed to as a family unit, as an extended family, as a religion, culture, ethnicity can be very influential and guide how caregiving is viewed, and so as well as how you are seen as a caregiver. So, Ajit, I wanted to come back and start with you, if it's all right, and just talk about, do you see, or what biases or even discrimination do you see encountered as a caregiver, especially when it relates to your own cultural background or that of your loved one?
Sure. So, by way of background, my parents were immigrants from India. And like Mary Beth, my mother was actually a registered nurse midwife and Lamaze
Mm.
instructor. And so I think some of the challenges have come, one, from her professional lived experience, and then second, from the cultural background. And I think it's important to kind of think about all the different parts of what make us up, and how those challenges can come, how they can kind of surface. And I say that in the context of active listening. So kind of, I sometimes feel like I'm probably would have been one of my mother's medical cohort members, because I feel like I'll get the medical report, and it's like the nurse's report, like she's just come off of night duty, and I'll get like da 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 da, da, and then I'll have to remind her, Mom, we're not really having a conversation. You're giving me the report like you used to do. So I think I say that in the context of cultural competence for care providers is a key thing to look for in a care provider is how effectively do they listen. There could be someone who comes from a medical background and they're used to giving, quote unquote, the report. Culturally speaking, people from South Asia tend to be from a high context culture. So there's not always direct communication. In North America, we have low context culture, or we're much more direct in terms of our communication. Someone on the outside might say, "Oh, I'm a mind reader," but actually, I can pick up nuances of what my mother's trying to communicate on a cultural lens, that she's not going to actually say those words. Because if she says what she really feels from her perspective, that's hostile or rude or aggressive, or she'll say you're shouting or you're being angry. And what I realized from one of the Caregiving Action Network resources is I'm trying to be, quote unquote, professional, logical, rational. Though one of the
Mhm.
resources I read before today was we have to really find patience. So I think a big thing about finding culturally competent care providers is how effectively do they listen? Do they understand kind of the whole person and all the different aspects of their lived experience, including their primary language, culture, professional background, immigrant experience, and also not, I would say, kind of assuming that one kind of continent is representative of all the different subcultures within a particular region of the world. So just because we're from South Asia doesn't mean that we are, the same as other countries
Right.
within the South Asian region, or South Asia does not mean Southeast Asia. They're kind of very different areas. So I think it all comes down to really being able to listen and pay attention.
Yeah, no, really well put. And as we've said throughout this, there isn't a one size fits all for any of these approaches or any of these aspects of being a caregiver. But also recognizing, thank you so much for underscoring, you really are looking for someone that's going to listen, because that at the end of the day is paramount when it comes to working with healthcare professionals, working with individuals that may be part of a care team, so that they can hear and understand. But also recognizing that if someone's native language, they may revert back to that and speak less English, and so then you've got an even more heightened need for that caregiver to be that bridge between their loved one and their care provider. Just on the same topic of just cultural competency within the healthcare system and engaging folks, anyone else have some thoughts they'd like to share? I saw a smile from Kathy, so I'm gonna have to call on you, Kathy.
Well, all right. You all have, I mean, the panel has heard this story. From a female a female having to deal with my husband's male doctors. Sometimes it was difficult. As his doctor, as I had to start going with him to the urologist. And around that same time, he got a new urologist. And this gentleman was a retired Army doctor. And my husband had done a career in the Army. He graduated, listen to me, he retired as an officer. And so they immediately, a mano, wah, yeah, I didn't exist anymore. I explained, well, what my husband's limitations were. The Army doctor totally dismissed me. It was almost as if I weren't there at all.
Mm-hmm.
So as we went on, and the Army doctor says, well, how would you like a prescription of Viagra? And here my husband is very much into dementia or whatever. And I'm kind of like, over here, can I get in this conversation? But he offered the Viagra, and I said, oh my, I'll have to deal with this the best way I can. But, and I won't tell you where we went with that. But one of the things that I have had to learn to do is navigate interacting with my husband's male doctors. And it happened with two other doctors who happened to be male, who seemed to feel that I was not the right person they should talk to. But I kept going, I'm the one who has to deal with all of this.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And yes, I did leave that doctor.
Thank you, Bridget, for chiming in. Yeah. Yeah, Kathy, you make such a great point because, one of the things we do as a part of our work at Caregiver Action Network, and Nicole and Jody as well, certainly have been on the front lines of this, is educating healthcare professionals about caregiving because, unfortunately, and I say this as the spouse of a physician, they are rightfully so taught patient, right? The patient is that's you're my patient, and this person that is here with you is supporting you, but you're my patient. And now, in more modern, perhaps, visions of that's changing some. But again, it goes back to how, as a caregiver, you can make your presence known, because sometimes caregivers are talked about as this invisible, behind the scenes workforce that is not seen and given the due that it should. Wow. Well, we could probably talk for a couple more hours, but I just want to thank you before I get into some of the resource overview of caregiveraction.org. Ajit, Kathy, Mary Beth, Jason, and I think Mary may have dropped off. Thank you so much for participating today. I mean, this has just been absolutely spectacular. The conversations in the chat have really underscored just how impactful your sharing has been today. We thank you from the bottom of our hearts for sharing your experiences, and what we hope is today that everyone on this call or on this Zoom feels a little bit less alone and a little bit less like they are kind of standing out there by themselves facing all of these difficulties. So it's much appreciated. All right. Well, we're going to continue and take this last 12 minutes to just talk a little bit more about resources. And so what I'm going to go over, you can find all this information on caregiveraction.org. And so don't feel as if you have to take copious notes, but feel free to capture anything you'd like to. This session is also being recorded, so just keep in mind that they'll be available to you afterwards. So one of the things we have is a module around navigating Alzheimer's effective caregiving approaches to neuropsychiatric symptoms. And so this is kind of if any of you have taken like a master class or some of those online courses where there are little snippets of information, and Nicole, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that's what this module is, where you can take kind of miniature courses around understanding the effect, how effective caregiving approaches can work for NPS or neuropsychiatric symptoms. And Jody just put that into the chat if you want to click on it, and feel free to browse around now or later on. But this can be a really good resource that, thanks to our supporters at Lundbeck and Otsuka, that we were able to introduce as a tool specific to supporting caregivers, and the word navigating being really important because it is a journey. It is a journey wrought with many, many obstacles that you have to navigate. And so for this, it really allows you to actually go to it and stop, come back to it, and you can monitor your progress on it as well. And so it really gives you an opportunity to meet where you are. You can do it on your phone or you can do it on your laptop. So that is a great resource as well. Caregiver Action, our help desk. So this has been a long-standing, since I think 2018 or so when we first debuted it, a spectacular single point of entry resource, meaning that if you're a caregiver, call. So that's every single person hearing my voice right now and every single person you know, you're welcome to reach out to 855-227-3640. You can also reach our team of trained professionals through caregiveraction.org/helpdesk. And you can also do a web chat with them through our website and also through email. And so whichever one works well for you, but it's a one-on-one support. And it really is whatever you're dealing with as a caregiver. It does not have to be that it's for your loved one that you're asking a question about. It could be that you're just having a tough day and you need someone to talk to, and we can provide you more information on ongoing support. Then I want to mention to you a really great screening tool that you may find helpful. It's the Agitation and Alzheimer's Screener for Caregivers, and it can be found at theaasc.com. And this really allows for you to understand a bit more about the agitation or behaviors you may be seeing in your loved one, as well as being able to get a sense, because sometimes you really don't know, is this the very beginning? Has my loved one jumped to the mid stage of agitation and I don't know it? And to give you a better sense, but also giving you a supportive environment around managing and understanding what those symptoms might be and what that agitation may look like. And then one of the other things we'll mention is that we've had a longstanding partnership with a company called Embodied Labs. And one of the reasons we connected with them is, one, their founder and president and CEO is a former caregiver. She was a caregiving youth for her mom who had early onset Alzheimer's. And out of that journey she created essentially a company that uses virtual reality to give a caregiver, or really anyone, the experience of what it's like to be in that person's shoes that's going through and living with Alzheimer's disease or dementia. And so you can, this is a training that we allow or offer up to folks that can be accessed through our website. You don't have to have virtual reality glasses. You can actually just do it with a normal computer screen. But it is one that really amplifies the ability to understand what your caregiver is going through. And I think one of the better things I heard was a grandson of someone that was navigating Alzheimer's, and they were able to share that when their grandmother was irritated or said something really cross with them, they said, it didn't bother them as much because they didn't take it personal, because they'd done this experience and realized that it wasn't about them, that they knew what to expect, and it gave them that sense of it. And so that's a resource, and that link is also in the chat, but you can reach that through our website as well. So, in the last few minutes we have here, I just wanted to get some takeaways here, and I'll post this to our panel if you guys are able to chime in on it. But and as well, I would invite you to put into the chat if you are so inclined. For those of you that are on the chat right now or on the webinar, about what common struggles or shared wisdom or uplifting wins stood out to you. So I would open that up to our full panel if anyone has anything they'd like to share, whether it's uplifting win or anything that we can take forward as a group, any words of wisdom that you'd like to share, I think would be a great time to hear them.
I'll share a few thoughts. Or Mary, I see you coming off of mute too.
The power got knocked out because of the storm.
Oh
Sorry.
no,
Yeah,
that's all right. All right, Mary, you want to go first and then Ajit?
sure. Although there have been some mention of support groups, I hadn't particularly talked about that yet today, and I have to say that has probably been a life-saving situation for me. I'm very fortunate to have both a local group that meets once a week that's sponsored by the Alzheimer's Association.
Uh-oh, I think we might have lost Mary again. She's having...
Memory Center. And between both of them, they have made such a difference. I mentioned in the chat that my husband participates in a PACE program, which provides all-inclusive care to someone who's elderly. And that has been the reason why he was able to return home and why 2+ years later, he is still at home with me after that very difficult psychotic episode. The PACE program makes a difference because I have support at home. He goes there 3 mornings a week for a day program. They manage all of his health care. And for people who have never investigated that, it's definitely worth checking into.
Yeah, I would say that PACE is probably one of the lesser known and lesser utilized, but most impactful things that can be supported for older adults. So Mary, thanks for sharing that. Dakota, if you could pull up that number 4 poll so that folks could answer that, and then I'm going to allow Ajit to share a little bit of some parting strategies or words of wisdom. Go ahead, Ajit.
So I think a big thing, Marvel, is just today's session has been really wonderful in that I'm realizing an uplifting win is all of us, a couple of hundred of us, are the resource that we all have resources within us. All the staff members, the panelists, the volunteers, the amazing audience members who've shared such wonderful books and resources and videos and TV shows. And then I just want to echo the training that Marvell mentioned. There's an amazing Stronger Memory workbook that I've downloaded. I realize I want to go through that. There's some amazing videos that I want to go back to. And there's some really hidden nuggets that I wasn't really aware of until I actually looked at the training. And there's pieces around reminiscing that we can remember our loved ones' stories. We can have shared distractions, say if it's cooking together or reading a particular newspaper together. There's a wonderful tool about music therapy and art therapy. And I offer that as well to all of us that are caregivers, is that we can benefit from those tools that are offered not only for our loved ones, but for ourselves. So there's some really great tools, and I hope everyone can take advantage of them and remember that we all have these tools inside us.
Great. Thank you so much, Jeet. Any other thoughts or words of wisdom from some of our panelists?
I have one or two.
Go for it, please.
One of the first things that I did, one of the first things I did was join a group, a support group, just to find out what the turf is like. And it was with Holy Cross Hospital. But then because I am a fitness, I teach fitness stuff, yoga and things and meditation, and I do healthcare lectures. I was able to work with the Jewish Council for the Aging in their programs for early on stage as well as early stage dementia. And by diving right in, well, first of all, by belonging to working with the organization, I got a plethora of information and resources that my county and all over the place. It was like I just dived into a pool of resources. And as long as I was there with them, I had all kinds of access to all kinds of things. And by working with the people, different people who present the disease in different ways was extremely helpful because I just got to know more. And then working with it gave me the access to other caregivers. So I got to listen to their stories and know more access and gain more resources. So for me, it's that, now I can't think of the saying, but if you want to learn how to swim, maybe be a swim instructor. I mean,
Mhm. Yeah.
and so by doing so, it gave me all kinds of access and support.
Yeah. Wow. Very, very well put, Kathy. Very well put. Um, wow. I'm gonna just share some closing remarks, but also thanks, Dakota, for showing those results. I'll will forego reviewing them right now, but it's quite impressive to see just um, how many different ways people have utilized calming or ways to redirect their loved one. Because these are the types of things, rubber meets the road of different approaches. Some of them work and some of them uh, um, may not hit the mark. But thanks so much. So, we've heard so many amazing things today, from whether it's understanding about mindfulness and being able to center yourself or screaming it up into a pillow, whether it's knowing that, you as a caregiver being able to advocate for your loved one and recognizing that you should not be allowed to be made invisible because you are there as an advocate and a support, but also recognizing that you can't do it alone. That our group today of dozens of individuals joining on this webinar, the undoubtedly hundreds more that will look at this afterwards. We've shared a lot of our resources, and I will tell you that one of the things that is a blessing for Caregiver Action Network is we have a ton of resources, and so we implore you to not only just explore the things you've seen posted today, but also recognizing that there's more on our website that you can navigate there by just looking through keywords, as well as our Facebook group, which was just put into the chat. If you'd like to join that, it's a a fabulous way to be able to connect with other caregivers, and also just recognizing that this is really about creating community, because as you saw with some of our panelists today, some have been caregivers previously, some are caregivers now, and really it's a community that gets built. So want to thank again our partners for today's session, Lundbeck and Otsuka, for just being fabulous partners and supporters. What I'll do now is ask Dakota to put up the one final poll, which is about what kind of support would most improve your caregiving experience right now, as we close our time. And then I'll ask if Paola, if you could come onto the screen and just tell folks about the post-summit survey that we'll be sending out, and some prizes that will be available for folks.
Absolutely. Let me go first since I'm already on, and Dakota, you could go next. Yes, thank you everyone for participating and signing up. This was an amazing summit webinar. Thank you, everyone. We will be sending out, I'm pretty sure everyone's received a pre-survey. We just wanted to kind of get your thoughts on what you knew and what you were already experiencing, but also a post-survey to see, once again, if you are able to share your thoughts and feedback. This really does add value to us. We listen to all the caregivers and we try to come up with presentations like this to better serve our caregiving community, but just anyone who needs even help winning, a win, or even some thoughtful quotes and advice that we all need at times. So thank you. And once we have completed the post survey, we will announce 3 lucky winners, and you'll be receiving an email with a $50 Amazon card for your participation.
Great. Thanks so much, Paula. So a little bit of an incentive there for filling out the post-summit survey. Dakota, go ahead. Go.
I was going to say, you'll be seeing that pull in here in just a second.
Got it.
Sorry.
Not a problem at all. We've actually done well for a low level of technical difficulties with over nearly 200 people on today. So this has been a really wonderful experience. Really so thankful for all of you. And just as an overall kind of overview of Caregiver Action Network, understanding that, our real core goal is to meet caregivers where they are, and being able to have sessions like this is just one way that we do this. And so we implore you, most of the times there is another caregiver in your life that perhaps could use this support, and we implore you to send them our way, whether it's through our help desk, through future webinars, our website, our Facebook groups. We have a really large following on LinkedIn, where we send out a lot of our information. And so whatever way is most comfortable for you, we would ask you to engage and continue to engage, because it's this information, it's clearing the clouds of uncertainty and letting you know that you really aren't alone is part of really what our goal is at Caregiver Action Network. So just thank you so much for taking the time. And as you click on and finish out this poll here, I'll just give a thanks again to our panelists for just giving such amazing insights and sharing so vulnerably and openly. Kathy, Mary, Jeet, Mary Beth, and Jason, and Nicole for being on and sharing your experiences, because as each of us know, they are so unique, but also hearing from other individuals really gives you a sense that, hey, that I'm not in this alone, and the things I'm experiencing, are not uncommon, that they are not unique just to your circumstances there. So I think we'll close out our time together there. Dakota, thanks so much for behind the scenes support. Jody, Paula, Nicole, and the entire team at Caregiver Action Network, Chance and Maybeth and others, just really thank you for taking the time to support us. And for all of you that are caregivers now or will be in the future, thank you for everything you do. It is with you that, quite frankly, we're as a society, we're able to support so many individuals, because caregivers are truly the backbone of our health system. So thank you so much, and we will talk to you again soon. Take care, everybody.